Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. And also welcome to the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast. We have made it, part 3, top 200 solo games commentary, the People's Choice list that is running on BGG. Kevin Erskine has released game number 1 on November 20th. So we're going to wrap up the celebration talking about the unfolding solo list. And we are so excited to come back with part 3. The panel is back. We're recording this all in one day. So it's like, all right, we're going to do this. And we're getting a little bit more salty and comfortable with each other. Liz dropping bombs, making me having a good time. Hopefully you're having a good time along with us out in the audience land. So let me introduce the panel one more time. The proprietor of the top 200 list, the person who collects all the votes. It is a People's Choice list. So then who collects all the votes, wades through people who don't read directions and makes it harder for him. But turns all that that's whatever is he gets into beautiful listicle form for our minds, our hearts, and our wallets. He is Kevin Erskine. Welcome to the show one more time.
Thanks for having me. My last chance to be famous for another year.
You get 15 minutes every year, my friend. I'm happy to do it. Okay, we have from Beyond Solitaire. She is my gaming bestie. She's going to be writing on the side. Unfortunately, 17 episodes ago, we covered War Games. No way War Games going to make it to the top 50. But we love her anyway. We have her around. Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire. I gave you that shot on purpose because of what you said to me last time. Welcome to the show.
It was just too good. But I'm a believer. I think War Games can come back. It's gonna happen.
And my terrible choice in choosing panelists who are
you're so mean to Mark. I mean, honestly.
Yeah. Sounds like my wife. What she says about me. This is all wrong. Yeah.
You besmirch sleeping gods. I didn't like that at all. So
didn't so much besmirch it. There's not much of a game there to besmirch in the first place.
Too much. Mark Dainty from Not Board Gaming. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I think.
And last and certainly least, it is. I'm kidding because we both love symptoms in the multiverse. I love this man. He is Luke Hector, the Broken Meeple. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, you right?
All right. So we are covering top 200 solo games. We no longer have to cover spoilers. We can now talk about the entire list. And I can give some perspective in terms of stats. One of the things we do lots of game commentary, but just give context for how the list has changed over the years with concrete numbers. So a couple of things. So this is in honor of Sarah Bear, who is a prominent person in solo, or was. I don't hang out as much as I want to in the BGG Guild, but she helped me a couple of years ago, and she requested that I always report on this, so I'm going to do so. Cult of the Old. How many games have been on the list all 8 years that Kevin has run it? In the past, so last year I tracked it, it was 30 games that have been on the list all 8 years. This year down to 22. So we are really cutting, Survivor style. I wonder which game is going to last 10, 12, 15 years. So then a lot of the games we covered already. I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Just 100 or 200? Just
100. So okay. 200, it blows my brain. Because you weren't tracking 200 for a long time. Right. I think you started 200 only a couple of years ago. So anyway, so top 100, 8 games have fallen out. We've covered a lot of them. Freedom, the Underground Railroad, Flashpoint Fire Rescue, Ghost Stories, Gears of War, Pathfinder Adventure Card Game, Snowdonia, and Star Realms. That one is whatever. Imperial Settlers is interesting because it was a big favorite solo game, but I think things have come along and replaced it. So then those are the games that have dropped out. I'm going to put a little graphic. I'm going to pour a little 40. So 22 games are left in terms of games that have been there all 8 years. All right. So then the next games in the chopping block are games like Hostage Negotiator, games we mentioned before. Space Empires 4X. No, I don't know why I wrote that down. That's not going to go on the chopping block at all. Unless Voidfall comes in, but we'll get to that. 204 games that got first place votes, up from 172 last time. We mentioned before that there was like over 900 total votes. So we have, which was a 1/3% increase over the last year, which is crazy. 50% increase. My math is terrible. Huge increase in numbers. So we got a lot of games at first place votes. The lowest game with the number one vote is called Habitats. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, I've never heard of this, but like, I'm so glad someone has something that gives them such joy.
Yeah.
I mean, so many other games like Zoography and the games that I've just, I don't want to talk anything about them at all, but the games that gave people joy. So I would like to ask everybody here, what is your favorite game that did not make the 200 list before we get started in the actual 50 to 1?
Oh, I know mine.
Just gonna double check it's on there.
Yeah, Myth for me. I still love Myth, and I'm waiting for Ulysses to reprint it and come out with it. I think it's a fantastic system that hopefully they make even better. But I love Myth.
Mm-hmm. It's a mess. The rules of giant, glorious mess.
Fair enough.
Liz, what is your favorite solo game that did not make the 200 list?
Ooh,
or one of them. Just pick a noteworthy game that you don't think made it.
Yeah, I'd say something like Stilicho Less the Romans by Robert Dulesky. It's from Hollenspiel. It's just such a lovely little game. I know that people don't like paper maps and it could be a little, judgy about how things look, but I really like Stilicho. It's funny. It's got lots of good Roman jokes in it. So does its predecessor, Wars of Marcus Aurelius. Mm-hmm. And if you want to play like an accessible solo game about keeping back Roman Empire enemies, it's good. I like it.
I totally surprised Luke and Mark. They had no idea I was going to ask that question. So they're like, what? So have you figured out what is your favorite solo game that did not appear? Mark, I'll start with you.
Okay, I would say Dungeon Degenerates, which I know the artwork is, the artwork is divisive. I think it's a cracking solo experience. You play multi-handed with it. Tells a fantastic journey and fantastic interconnected stories every time you play it. I love Dungeon Degenerates.
That's the art is divisive is understated. I want to
love
blind.
I absolutely love it.
You weren't far off though. It got close.
Yeah. What about you, Luke?
Thinking of a bit of a niche one here, say, because most people probably don't own this one because they've only just done another Kickstarter for it, but it's so low on the list. In fact, it almost didn't even make the votes. Edge of Darkness.
Wow, that's true.
A big box. It is so far down the list it's untrue because I think most people don't own it, but I love it solo. It's kind of a bit on par with like the Dwellings of Eldervale in terms of its like how easy it is to do and how it kind of like improves from the multiplayer game. But if you like the card crafting system of a Mystic Vale, Edge of Darkness basically goes, well, why don't we like jump that up to 11 and add worker placement and a cube tower and God knows how many other mechanics in it as well. So it makes it a really heavy experience, but with the giant box down there and all the content, I would rather play it solo than with multiplayer. Not to say multiplayer is bad, but yeah, it's definitely my niche title, but it nearly didn't even get a vote.
Edge of Darkness was a very expensive, and I think like you look at it and people are like, okay, it's cards and it's a board. Like if they're gonna pay that much, it's like where's the minis and where's all the other like pomp and circumstance.
Where's my 3D terrain?
Yeah. I love Edge of Darkness, actually. It's a really, really good choice. And I am definitely looking to get more feature for that one. But yeah, you're right. I know this is one of my favorites that I know you like, Luke, is The Pursuit of Happiness. I love The Pursuit of Happiness. It's an excellent solo. It's a lighter weight, so it definitely, if you look at the list, for the most part, people if they're gonna go a year, they're gonna go a little bit heavier than Pursuit of Happiness. But I love the game. I love like developing your life and everything. That's great.
It was only 15 off as well. That is such a good solo game. That's a good one.
It's a really, really good one. But so that's just kind of giving people a sense of our taste and the things that what we're looking for. Liz with some obscure Euro, Kevin with some big sloppy dungeon crawler, and me with like some thematic thing. And Mark, I had no idea you were just like some acid trip of a board game. That's
child of the 80s. What can I say?
The 80s. All right, so let's get to 50 to 26. I always mess those numbers up, but 50 to 26. We'll talk about that one. There are some really, really games over here. But let's start with the debuts. And we mentioned this towards the end of, or I think Mark mentioned it off camera, but we'll talk about it here. Hadrian's Wall, number 50, a pure debut. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. I just think it's a phenomenal achievement. You've got what effectively looks like a spreadsheet and a game that looks on the face of it to be really complex. It's a flip and write more than anything. So you're flipping cards and then you're filling bits in on the spread on the two pads that you've got. But it all makes sense and it creates a really good puzzle every time that you play it. Again, there are difficulty modifiers, and I think they've launched a solo campaign on the website as well that you can get for it. It's not as complex as it looks. The rule book is really, really very good as well. You read through that rule book once and you can play the game effectively. I think the only, I know we're talking about solo here. I think the only thing about it is as a multiplayer game, I think it's pretty much multiplayer solitaire. But as a solo game, it really, really shines. I think it's a really good achievement. It's the only Garfield Games game I've got. And I think it's just a cracking game. I think it's accessible despite it looking complex.
Mm-hmm. Liz and I are mad at Hadrian's Wall for different reasons.
Yeah.
Thematically speaking, we won't get into that now. But in terms of a flip and right, that was a movement, right? I mean, roll and right, flip and right. A lot of people were designing and making games in that space. The more you explore that space, the more complex you get. So it's like, how much can I put into this genre? And Hadrian's Wall is definitely one of those where it's like, okay, this is about as much as I want.
Yeah.
They have really squeezed as much juice out of that particular thing as possible. So people are really responding to it. So there you go.
Yep.
Also a debut on the solo end, Warp's Edge. The bag building game, also from Renegade Game Studios, in their solo line. Proving Grounds was like this quick dice rolling game that didn't really make an impression, but Warp's Edge from Scott Alms, bag building. Well, you could tell me about it, Liz, because I know you did a preview for it.
Oh, I did a review for it. I love Warp's Edge. Warp's Edge is a great bag builder. This is the reason why people look at you funny when you say Coffee Roaster is your favorite, Luke.
Exactly.
Warp's Edge is a phenomenal space fight, dog fight against a big boss bag builder where you are acquiring all these different tokens for defeating enemies and you get special powers and you're trying to build up your arsenal correctly so you can handle these increasingly difficult enemies. And it's very slick, it's very smooth, it's very satisfying. It's a keeper for real. It's really, really, really good.
I've never actually come across it. I mean, I probably would like it from the theme, although if you asked me that this game, what year it came out, I would have never guessed it was last year. Because it doesn't look like a 2020 game.
It's definitely like Space Invaders-y, like a motif. They're going for like a little bit of older vibe, but nostalgia.
You had kind of two of them vying for the position last year. You had this and Under Falling Skies, which came out more or less the same time. I've still not played Warp's Edge yet, and I think it went out of print, but it wasn't available for a while. So it's something I do need to pick up. But I know that solo players that like it do really like it.
Yeah, I'd try it. It looks good.
Yeah. Give her a Coffee Roaster.
No, I still have my copy of Coffee Roaster, but get Warp's Edge. That's a hard recommend for me.
Because I can have both. It's fine.
Yes, you can. You can have coffee and spaceships and space coffee.
As I said, I'll give the disclaimer in every single episode. If we talk junk about a game, we're not talking about anybody. We're not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. We're just having a good time. If anybody who likes certain games, we totally affirm your taste. So we're not going to try to be too mean towards people, but the games, oh baby. Anyway,
apart from Luke, we can be mean towards Luke. Yes.
By the way, I want to point out, Jason. So we can talk about the full list, though, right? Even though we're talking about this segment.
I mean, depends on what it is.
So I just want to say, you're talking about we're not going to see any war games here, but there's so much kind of war game adjacent stuff that did make it this high. either really solid historical games, or things that have some CG mechanisms. So, for example, Pax Pamir is on here. That game
I was going to lead you Pax Pamir. Yes,
fabulous. It is fabulous. I love that game. I'm glad to see it get attention. You also have things like Dawn of the Zeds. That's still a classic States of Siege structure. So just because people don't want it to look like it's in World War II or something doesn't mean that those mechanisms are not going to work for people. Sure. And also, I'll just briefly mention that Nemo's War, which has the same kind of vibe, is higher up.
Okay. Actually, I was going to mention, let's take a little bit more time on Pax Pamir because that one is, it was a second edition. Ricky Royal redid the solo on that one, and there was a lot going on there. It's Co-Whirly game, and Co-Whirly just, That dude. I'm surprised he's not more represented on the list, but like between Root and Pax Pamir, definitely some good representation. And just like, you know, again, you're very right to point that out. Like I make fun of like the war games, the way Luke was talking about them, where it's like, okay, name of thing and then date this to this. Like that style of war game may be passing, but in terms of the patrimony, in terms of the mechanisms and the approach and the arguments that it makes, and like there's definitely that lives on.
Yes.
And a game like Pax Pamir is definitely you know, kind of going on that patrimony.
Yes. And so if you're curious about playing a historical game, I think Pax Pamir is a beautiful mixture between a very elegant game and extremely interesting commentary on a historical era. It's Afghanistan, it's the Durrani Empire, and you are basically these Afghan nobles who are trying to get what they can for themselves, and also make sure that they're siding with whoever's going to have the most influence in the country. So either the Afghans themselves, the Russians, or the Brits, because this is during colonial era. So you're doing area control, and you're doing, you know, sneaking around and building up a really good card tableau. You can assassinate other people's cards. There's just so much that you can do. Once you realize the possibilities of the game, it's just so tense and fun and vicious. And Ricky Royal made a really, really good solo bot that does enough of everything to really give you a run for your money.
Have you played it, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got it. It's in my top 10 list of solo games. Not only is it quite a unique game, and it's as Liz mentioned, kind of all the interconnecting mechanisms there. It looks beautiful as well. It's kind of uniquely beautiful. You've got the clay pieces, you've got the cloth map with it. Yeah. It is kind of not a complex game to get into, but to make sure you've got every rule of the solo rules right, you're going to have to play it a few times to work through that. But once it does click, it's a game that hits my table fairly frequently. I love Pax Pamir 2nd edition.
How does it work solo though? I've only played it I played it the once. I'm not even sure why I played it, because obviously it's not the theme I would have gone for. But my friends had it. We played it. I can't remember how I won, because somehow I did, because I was barely understanding what was going on. But But a lot of it is supposed to be the interplay between players and dealing with like the factions and what they do. So how does the bot replicate that?
So the bot is a series of cards. So it's choosing actions based on where some icons are at the side of the cards there, but also based on the game state as where you are at the moment as well. So I think I've never played it with other people. I've only ever played it purely solo. So maybe you're missing out on some of this kind of making treaties with people, etc., and the diplomacy aspect of it. But still, the bot provides enough of a challenge. I think Liz hit it on the head, where it gives you enough of the game to really enjoy it from a solo perspective. It's worth seeking out, Luke, definitely. I think it's a beautiful solo game.
Well, I mean, I haven't got the game itself. My friend has it.
Steal it.
I bet. I don't know. It's the thing is,
nick it. I don't go speak in the British parlance. Nick it.
Yeah, it's just I don't go for the. I just don't go for the thieves. That's the thing, because I mean, I've got a picture here. It shows it beautiful. I'm hit or miss about the whole pastel blocks all over the place thing, but the cards, when I was getting those, it's like you need to know about two things on the card: what icon it has and what flag it has at the bottom or something. And then it's got like about 3/4 of the card is flavor text, which is fantastic if you have any interest in the theme when you get into it or so. But if you don't have the interest in the theme, it's kind of hard to gel with it as much.
Don't read it then. No.
I
actually ended up reading an entire book about this just based on the bibliography feedback, because I thought it was so interesting. But no, I mean, the game is still enjoyable.
Definitely, yeah.
It's still enjoyable just in the sense that you're still out for yourself. And it's that delicate, like, okay, am I going to try to make sure that I've got enough personal stuff out on the map that if we can't kind of get one of these factions to be dominant at score check, I can personally benefit? Or do I want to try to like help be part of a faction, but then I won't get enough credit if somebody else is ahead of me in terms of sucking up to them enough? And that's the real like tension, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if you know anything about the history or not. That's just pure human brown-nosing politics. Like
I'm surprised this is one for you, Mark. I wouldn't have put this. I know you like a lot of the heavier stuff, but I wouldn't have put this kind of game
Yeah, you know, there's certain games where I may not know a lot about the history that happened there, like this, and maybe like Freedom Underground Railroad. Is I've learned a lot from those games. Whether you agree with whether they should be made or not is a different thing. But Freedom Underground Railroad and this, as you mentioned the flavor text on there, I have no interest in this particular period in history, but I found it fascinating to read each and every card on this, understand the motivations behind all the various characters and the various factions, etc. And that really helped me. We mentioned a sense of immersion earlier. That really helped me get immersed in a solo game.
You certainly get enough time to. So, well, in a multiplayer anyway.
All right, so we are going to talk about some risers now. I'm going to bring Kevin back in here. We're talking more chip theory. We're not going to hear a lot from chip theory, but they're going to keep on going. The riser plus 30, which is pretty significant. Cloudspire at number 27. Are you still? Oh, I mean, I know Madara's at the table. That's been there since June, but like, is that still kind of in your brain space, Cloudspire?
Oh yeah. That I played probably about half the scenarios before I put it away, just to play something else. But yeah, I love Cloudspire. And it's right up my alley where I can play a game and it's like, okay, I didn't get all the achievements, so I'll start it over and do it again and do it again and do it again until I'm like, okay, I got them all. Now I move on to the next one.
And it's troops. It's like it's like open field troops and like
it's like a tower defense.
Tower defense,
kind of. Yeah, it's just it plays quick. The chips, standard chip theory stuff. The chips are great. The mats are great. You're moving. There's less hidden. There's no dice in this one, so there's a little bit, but it's more about just planning and strategy. And I'll look at the map for 5 minutes before I decide, okay, this is where I'm going to go this turn, and because I know what the enemy's going to do, and so it's a great game for me. That's the kind of stuff I love.
Mark, you've played, you enjoy it.
There we go. I've got some of my Cloudspire collection here.
For the podcast, it is right behind Mark's head.
Yeah, there we go. And not all of it. I got the expansions earlier this year. They're in another cupboard. I love Cloudspire. I think it's, as Kevin says, once you get to grips with it, and again, it's just one of those games that's not necessarily easy to learn. There are lots of nuances to the rules, and then you've got all the asymmetric factions as well. But once you get to grips with how it flows, it's a really, really good game. I played it solo, obviously, considerable amount of times. I played it over Zoom with Paul Grogan a couple of times at Gaming Rules as well. And I know Kevin says it plays quick. Sometimes some of those scenarios have gone on for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Yes, but
turns are
quick. But it's dynamic as you're playing the game. The landscape changes dynamically. What the AI does changes dynamically. It's not for everybody, and that's a real. I think this is quite a Marmite game for a lot of people, and I can understand why people. You guys wouldn't understand Marmite. Sorry, it's a UK reference there. It's a yeast-based spread that some people like and some people love. So yeah, it's kind of a divisive game. I can understand it not being for a lot of people, but for me, it's a great game. I love Cloudspire.
You have to teach me this one at some point.
That's the thing I've always wondered about Cloudspire. So I also really, really like Cloudspire. I think it's brilliant. It's so imaginative. It's doing everything that chip theory is supposed to do. I just wish that I had other people to play with, because I feel like the solo is really cool, but it's also on rails. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And because you have to go through the scenarios as opposed to just like, oh, I want to play this faction versus this faction. Let's throw it down. Let's go. So I'm really happy to see it rising, because that tells me we're going to get some more stuff to do.
Yeah. But you've also got the endless mode in it, Liz, at the end of the solo rulebook, which just allows you then to have this constant wave of other factions coming towards you.
I mean, they just made $3.5 million in their last Too Many Bones Kickstarter, so I have a feeling chip theory is just fine. Whatever they want to release.
People like fancy poker chips.
Just tell me how many Sentinels in the Multiverse cards you've got again, Luke.
It's a lot.
More cards than there are poker chips. But
it's a lot.
How much did your Cloudspire cost?
One last noteworthy riser, which we've talked about a couple of years, but it just continues to keep on going up. The designer has definitely, I think there's a lot of love for the designer. They have done a lot with customer service and getting the word out about their game. They only have one game, so they're very devoted to it. Was a feature on Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire talking about this one particular game, and it just keeps on getting the love over and over again. It is Obsession, plus 23 to 29. I wonder how high that game is going to go.
I'm really happy to see it get as high as it has. I love Obsession.
Yeah,
I,
it really is like it's be good. The more and more I think about it, and I pop it down every once in a while. It was like, wow, this is a really, really good game.
Mark,
So
are you about to say something on this? Yeah.
Well, I live literally a 20-minute drive away from where Obsession's set, and you cannot get this game for love nor money in the UK at the moment. So I know people absolutely adore it. It's within, it's set within 20 minutes of my house, and I've never played it. It's on the list unless I want to pay stupid money for it, and those days are behind me. I'm just going to wait for it to be available before I get hold of it.
Yeah, I can't. I'm struggling to understand its mass popularity. I've played it once because I think David Digby brought it to a local convention. It's like, look, everybody keeps banging on about this game. Please teach me this game. So we played a 4-player of it. I can understand why it's probably better solitaire than 4-player because honestly, the other players have no purpose being in the game for it. It really is a solitaire one. But even after playing it, I'm going, okay, this is a unique theme in that. But I'm still trying to understand why this much buzz. Like, I mean, it's an obsession play on, no pun intended, but everyone is like gagging to get this game, and I'm thinking it's nice, it's a different theme. I can't stand that period of history, but I mean, I'm sure there's people that like it. Yeah,
that's there you go. That's
the
what
barrier.
it is. Because I grew up watching BBC specials. I love to read like Regency era romance novels. I like Downton Abbey. Like I like all that stuff. So if I'm like, ooh, let's hold an event on a bowling green. Like to me, that is hilarious. I want to do that, and I want to make my little finger sandwiches and have tea.
It was funny to joke about that. I mean, I was just trying to not make fun of it, but I was trying to make a stupid theme out of it because I knew it wasn't the theme I liked. But it's kind of like, all right, let's just go nuts with this. Let's just ham it up like crazy. But maybe there's too much bad memories from having to read and watch all of Pride and Prejudice at secondary school, which has probably put me off this theme for life. When you have to read out loud the book and watch the 6-hour serial with Colin Firth or whatever.
The 6-hour serial. So. Okay, this is probably a gender issue. Straight, bookish women for sure in the United States, and probably a number of other subgroups of people who admire Colin Firth. Like that miniseries is like the imprint for attractive. Like a gentleman for an entire generation.
I'm just like, how many times can these people have dance balls in one lifetime? It's like, seriously, it's like every week.
As many times as y'all can get together and play Warhammer or watch a baseball game, which I also like to do. Or
I will say that my wife liked Bridgerton. And because she liked Bridgerton so much, oh my God, she watched it 4 or 5 times.
Did she like Bridgerton or did she like Hastings?
Yeah. No, Bridgerton.
I'm just saying the Duke of Hastings or the whole show.
No, she liked the whole show. I mean, yes, the draw. The Duke of Hastings was a draw. So I actually got her to play half a game of Obsession because of Bridgerton, and she's like, "This is a little bit too much for me." And I think that's also the draw from the solo experience because there's these 3 resources. You have your cards. Which are the guests, you have your tiles, and you have your servants. And those are 3 different streams that you have to kind of coordinate. And that's challenging. That's a really enticing challenge to get them all to do the same thing at the same time. Because if you miss one, then you're going to miss out on half your points. And so I think that's a real draw in terms of mechanism for a solo as well. So we banged on about Obsession enough. You got me saying banged on, Luke.
Sorry, can I just dispel one myth as well for maybe not British speaking friends? It's not Derbyshire. I'm sorry about this. It's Derbyshire.
No, Derbyshire.
Yeah, Derbyshire. Yeah, Derbyshire. There's no Shire. Derbyshire. Yes.
Yeah.
Shire is for hobbits.
Yeah.
Hey, at least they're pronouncing the H for a change,
Okay, so just really quickly, some games that are noteworthy for their falls, and then not rocketing down, but it's definitely just like a double-digit fall for Onirim, Renegade. Oh, Ricky Royal.
Yeah.
Why are you putting your thumbs up for Renegade, Kevin?
No, not Renegade. For Onirim and Legendary Marvel.
Oh yeah. Okay, so there are some double-digit fallers right there. It's definitely up there. Mark got Renegade on the right there. Hey, Ricky Royal, I think Ricky is still riding with me watching the show. Go ahead and put a comment in there if I shout you out, you're watching the show. Please put a comment in the YouTubes. There's a big family over here, and so it's just a case of games that aren't getting released, and there's new games coming in. So, they're still like a stable kind of in the top 100, but we're getting pushed down by newer releases. So then let's get to the top. Let's get to
hang on. I want to say one thing. I mentioned it earlier. The game that I got the most controversy for combining was Arkham Horror. I had numerous people who would say, I want second edition only. And I'd, send them a geek mail back saying, well, I'm going to combine them. Like, okay, well, take out my vote. Literally was saying,
wow.
I had multiple people do that.
Wow.
And it's so, what's interesting is you have a brand new version and it still dropped. That tells me that the new version is hated.
It's not good. I don't think, it's good. It's just weird. It's just, I don't know. Like it feels like a very different game that they slapped Arkham Horror on, and it could be a perfectly fine game, but why is it Arkham Horror? Only for sales, only for branding, and only for it's just a different game. And I just feel like, it just gives such a different taste than what people are used to with Arkham Second.
Possibly. I mean, the theme is still the same, though. I mean, at the end of the day, the premise is still the same. A couple of mechanical differences, but you still go around, get encounter cards, read the story, kill a few monsters, stop the big bad with the theme. Yeah, a couple of mechanical differences. But I mean, I used to play a lot of Arkham Horror Second. I have not played it in years because there's too much stuff in that box.
A lot of mechanical differences.
The third one at least allows me to play it a bit easier, although we'll get to the best example of that later on. And so it's, I don't see why combining that would be that controversial. It's only a game, people.
Right. and if anybody's wondering, the reason I combine them in this case is like, if you try to buy this or Descent, you're going to get the new one. So I combine them because that's what you're going to get. If you look up Arkham Horror, you're going to get the new one probably at the store. And then the only other game I'd mention, I love Tainted Grail. So we mentioned a little bit here and there, but I really had that's probably the game that was on the table before Madara for a month or so.
Love it. Got 2 more campaigns to play in it. I can't wait to get started on that.
Tainted Grail definitely hit my I think my cup runneth over, and Tainted Grail I just couldn't fit it into the cup. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's a really good game.
It's the dark, gritty themes that I think is selling it to be with the solo ones, even if it is kind of historical based. Like one, I know it hasn't risen or fallen, but I've got This War of Mine, the board games on this one at 30. Adore this game so much, particularly with the last expansion. Now, I don't tend to go for necessarily like the war themes or even anything that's kind of based on a historical war of such. But this one, I think it's like what emotion it gives you there, because you mentioned Freedom, the Underground Railroad. That one can get you pretty sort of thought up if you take it seriously. This War of Mine, though, so dark, so gritty, and yet I love every second of it I'm playing because I'm actually caring about half of the events I do, particularly with Days of the Siege, where I'm trying to I've just come across an orphanage. I know I've got stuff to do, but I've really got to save them. I gotta do this. And then when it goes bad for you, you actually like.
That's brilliant. That's one I probably should get.
This was the one. It's brilliant. It's unique. It tells a great story. It's like fraught, in a weird way, but it's. I don't know. It doesn't feel gross. It doesn't feel exploitative. No. Right? There's a lot of games that enter into like war and suffering, and they feel a little bit gross because they put you in the position of the conqueror or something like that. I mean, this War of Mine puts you in the position of a survivor, and it's basically the Seventh Continents and the Robinson Crusoes, but like much more. The modern theme and emotionally resonant. And this War of Wine is just completely, utterly brilliant game. Solo gamers, you have good taste, people. Liz, is there a game in the 50 to 26 range that you think we should talk about?
Let me check one more time.
That we missed.
Because we talked a bunch about Pax Pamir,
that's the one you wanted.
We got Renegade.
I think we're good. We got the one. We're good. Let us move on to the top of the list. 50 or 25 to 1. And let's just go straight to the top. We're not going to bury the lead over here. Spirit Island, people. Spirit Island is so I think like when you see like, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3, you're thinking like, okay, it's kind of a tight horse race. This is not a tight horse race, people. And Spirit Island became the number 1 solo game. I think it was 3 years ago, right, Kevin? Something like that.
No, last year, I think, wasn't it?
I think it's the third
maybe
year.
It was 2. Yeah,
right.
Maybe it was.
This is the 3rd year that it's been number 1. So we're talking a couple years ago. And since then, we had our little like back and forth about like, okay, which, a tussle. No. Spirit Island is the secretariat it is completely putting so many things in the dust. Do you want to break down some of the vote totals and how the vote breakdown happened there, Kev?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, when you look at like number of votes for a game in the top 20, I mean, Spirit Island was almost half the people have it on their list, which is that's remarkable.
100 more than the next game, Mage Knight. 100 more.
Right. But I will say this for Mage Knight, though, it's got 100 less votes and it still has more number one votes.
True.
So less people. I mean, I think every time someone brings up Mage Knight, the first comment from all the haters is, oh, it's so complicated. Don't even bother. You can't play it. And so it scares away a lot of new people. But, you know, some of us like me and Liz, we will keep telling people that if you try it, you may love it. And really, I mean, if it wasn't for a game that I played 97 times in 1 month, Mage Knight is unquestionable, would still be, actually, as far as a self-contained non-campaign, for me, there's nothing close to Mage Knight. It's still the number one by far. The Spirit Island's good. It's in my top 20. I love it. But yes, Spirit Island, as far as, I mean, the number of people who voted for it, the score, I mean, the difference between that and Mage Knight is as big as the difference between Mage Knight and the number 3 game.
Right.
So yeah, it's unquestionably, when you look at stats, at least, the number one.
I mean, we're talking doubling up the next couple of games. And, you know, so Spirit Island is on 400, what was it? I mean, say 472 out of 950 ballots. By the time you get to number 3, we're talking like, you know, 300 ballots, 200 ballots, 100 ballots very quickly. I mean, Spirit Island is just a monster and voted highly. I mean, the average vote people, it's not just like kind of hanging on people's lists. It's like an average, I think it was average of 5. You know, it was the average of 5th place game, which, you know, relative to only Mage Knight beat it in terms of like the average rank on people's list. So it's not just people are voting for it; is a lot of people's number one game. Luke, you are a fan of Spirit Island. Go for it.
Yeah. The fact that Spirit Island has beaten Mage Knight fills me with so much joy. You cannot believe it. But I love Spirit Island. This is I want my Euro puzzle, but give me the theme with it. Combine the two, you get Spirit Island, and everything about it just works for me.
Oh, yeah.
Got a bit, Kevin.
I don't know what Kevin's doing. Kevin's messing around. Are you digging out a big box of Mage Knight back there, Kevin?
No, he's on the phone.
No.
Oops. All right.
You yourself.
I mean,
mute.
Yeah, the Spirit Island is just so good.
Sorry,
everything about it. Everything about it is thematic. It doesn't even look that great overall.
Actually, go ahead. I'm going to cut a lot of that out. Go ahead and start again. Start again with Spirit Island.
With Spirit Island is that combination of I want the big heavy Euro puzzle, but I want the strong theme to go with it. Yes, the aesthetics are not the pitch perfect, you know, the white chintzy plastic everywhere, but I do not care. And even playing this multiplayer, I still have fun, but playing it solo, which is typically true solo, one spirit, is still great because every time I can play a different spirit, different adversary or scenario, and I'll get a completely different game, which effectively tells a story because I still remember things that have happened from specific games. And I mean, I love the fact that this is kind of like the polar opposite of like Mage Knight in terms of theme or something. Both of them are heavy games with a Euro puzzle in it, but when you've got like Spirit Island up on the upper side of theme and then Mage Knight more on the lower end or something, it's like it's good, interesting to see like two polar opposites be the top two.
It's really interesting you describe them that way. That is not at all how I see Spirit Island and Mage Knight as polar opposites.
I do not see any theme in Mage Knight whatsoever.
I strongly disagree with that.
You mentioned Kevin mentioned the first comment. Was it the first comment the haters on Mage Knight say is like too complicated? That's not the first comment I have.
No, I mean for me, Mage Knight is incomparable for me because, and I've said this before, nothing else gives me the sense of growth that Mage Knight gives me. I mean, you already start off fairly powerful, right? But it's about, you know, there are some ethical choices if you get into that sort of thing, which I certainly am able to. I've burned down a monastery or two in my time. But
how bad is my reputation? It's already pretty bad. Burn, baby, burn.
But for me, it's less about, I don't see them as opposites just because it's the feeling of that the games give me is so very different. Mage Knight gives me a feeling of increased power and of growth. And I like that even within, even within a fairly set environment, if you are controlling like what tile stuff go in there, like it's you still have so many choices because you'll never have enough time to do all the things that you could do in the game because the timeline is so tight. I like Spirit Island, but like when I dream about having time to play a game, Spirit Island is not the game I dream of playing. And Mage Knight is.
I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. I think Mage Knight for me always holds a special place. It was my first board game I got when I was moving into modern board games and or solo board games. So I decided to jump right into the deep end, spent days reading the rule book, all that kind of stuff, played it wrong, probably still play it wrong in places, and I don't care.
You probably watched Ricky Royale's tutorial on it.
Oh, absolutely.
That man, we owe so much to Ricky Royale.
But and I love, and like Liz says, if I have the time and I know I can devote some time, I want to get Mage Knight back on the table. Spirit Island should tick every box for me. And there's no denying it's a great game, but it's constantly in and out of my to sell pile. Kevin mentioned it being his top 20. I don't think it would make it into my top 20. I enjoy it when I play it ish, but I always kind of think, God, I wish I was playing something else instead. And I've got nothing against Spirit Island. It's pretty much like, and we've skipped past it, Lost Ruins of Arnak. It does everything correct and everything it should do. It just doesn't engage me, Spirit Island. Whereas Mage Knight, I put it out, I'm lost for hours, if not days, because I'll go back over multiple sessions. And I will tell a fantastic tale as I'm going along the countryside in Mage Knight. And that's why it will always be really high at the top of my list.
Yeah, Mage Knight gives me that intense addictive feeling that Spirit Island for some reason doesn't do for me. I think it's really interesting you said about Arnak too. That might be a separate conversation, but we'll
get to that. I wanted to just get to the top, and then we'll work.
I know how Jason. Now I know how Jason felt when you were ragging on Sleeping Gods.
We're not ragging.
I love them both.
Spirit Island is objectively a good game. It's the best. No,
but
you say there's nothing wrong with Spirit Island. My big complaint is you can go along and you're playing and you're doing stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I won last turn, and you don't even realize. I mean, Mage Knight, there's no question. When you won.
You don't win. Yeah,
we don't win.
You don't win. I mean, you mentioned the growth thing or something. I remember as a power of growth. Right, I'm going to go. I'll go into this cave. Oh, it's a dragon. I'm dead. Oh, that was good.
Learn to play. You don't like Mage Knight because you have failed to plan and you're blaming the game.
You're just not good.
I don't know what's in the cave. There's a cave. I'm going to go into it. I'm an adventurer. I don't know there's a dragon.
I don't know how you got a dragon in a cave because
that's a great question.
Possibly because I got the rules wrong, because everybody who plays this game gets a rule wrong.
Hey, between Ricky Royale, a bunch of other tutorial series out there, including mine, which is quite good, by the way. You could learn it.
Yeah, I know. Mark and I have come to blows so much on Mage Knight. It's great. It's like we could do a whole video on it. It's like...
Why Luke is wrong.
They're both top 6 games for me. Sleeping Gods are edged above Mage Knight for me. Sorry.
I think it's sort of like Yeah, it's kind of like that the Euro thing, because I think it's a similar reason why Gloomhaven didn't work for me as much. It takes what's supposed. I think I went into it with the wrong impression, I'll admit, because I went into it thinking, right, give me a good thematic dungeon crawl adventure, but instead it's a Euro game with that theme pasted on top of it, a bit like Gloomhaven is, and it's like, I get why that's great for a lot of people, but that wasn't what I was hoping for when I went into it. So it was just like wrong impressions.
All right, so we're going to have that discussion every year until something else breaks in. It's going to be Spirit Island Mage Knight, and at this point, Spirit Island is going to take the pace. And Eric Roos did announce on Twitter that he is starting to churn up another expansion. So it was expanded last year, and the next expansion is going to center on the Dahan and making them a little bit more an active.
Finally, it is about time, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, so like, he hears it, so it's like, okay, now I'm going to figure out how to do this. That's been like he hasn't announced that, but he did put out a call for like, okay, give us some ideas and everything. So it's in a formation stage. We may not see it for a couple of years, but it is not a dead product. Unlike Mage Knight, which unfortunately we're probably not going to get more of, but whatever. People like Mage Knight. Okay.
Yeah, well, we didn't get more Gospels either, but people are still reading those.
Interesting parallel. Okay. So keeping there's a lot of stability in the list, so we're not going to mention every game. We've mentioned games all along the time, but I think that Marvel Champions, the card game, is kind of a newer entry Here it was on the list last year, debuted a couple of years ago, has outstripped the other collectible card games for a number of reasons. I think that Marvel, obviously, I think that this is Marvel Champions is the best game for pure solo. Lord of the Rings card game is a rough solo because you got to do the 3 decks. Arkham Horror, the card game, is kind of more story based. That's a little bit more. I mean, people love Arkham Horror, the card game. It's here, but in terms of that, this really leaning into that crunch and the hand management, I think people and the collectability. People love the collectability too. Different heroes and different deck constructions. Marvel Champions, the card game, is definitely a worthy number 3. Does anybody else here enjoy Marvel Champions?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Every LCG. I mean, Lord of the Rings, Arkham Horror, and Marvel Champions. I got all 3, and I'm glad to see them all in the top 10 because they do make great solo games. So granted, Lord of the Rings is a bit more harder to get to the table because you do have to deck build quite crazy with that one. Whereas I think the appeal with Marvel Champions particularly is that half the deck building is already done for you. You take this hero, half the deck's already prescribed. You now just have to fill up the other 20 or 30 cards. So you can get a deck together reasonably well. If I've only got one worry about this game is that I'm worried that power creep is starting to set in a bit with the villains, where they're becoming so crazily impossible at times. It's like, wow. So you've got to really devote to trying to beat them. It's like, I want a few more villains that I can just have fun playing against and win at least once, maybe.
I'm not surprised that Champions is up there too, because it is more accessible. Both in terms, I think with Arkham Horror, it feels more difficult to go back and start at the beginning when the story has advanced so far now, and it feels kind of weird.
It got out of hand really fast.
Yeah,
like, in terms of the releases, it was a lot.
And now I feel stressed out about it because I can't catch up. Like
it's the scenario based part, because I mean, Arkham Horror, I mean, you can pick whichever campaign you like. You don't have to get all the campaigns to enjoy it. But the cycle pack thing is a problem when it came to its model. So the fact that now Fantasy Flight are doing this whole big box thing for every cycle again, perfect. That's really how it should be distributed. Marvel Champions does have the advantage, though, which is something I like about, Sentinels and a few others. Or Mansions of Madness, actually, a perfect example, is scenario based. Campaigns I'm starting to get a little bit sick of, where it's like, oh great, I've now got to convert another 15 to 20 games to get through this campaign. Even Lord of the Rings and Arkham Horror, great, but you've got to play a good 8-part campaign if you're doing the full story. Marvel Champions doesn't have that. I just pick a villain, go, done. That story is wrapped up. To be continued.
But there's no story. I mean, like story's it's a pile of mechanisms, and they're really good mechanisms. But that was my disappointment with Marvel. Like, I mean, I kind of want at least like a 3 character arc, and it makes sense. I just didn't thematically. I think it's almost the weakest one of the 3 LCGs.
For me, I think. Sorry, I was going to say Marvel Champions. I went hard and heavy when it first came out. I thought it was great. Got it to the table, bought every expansion. And then realized I was buying expansions without playing the game. And it probably hasn't hit my table in over 12 months now. I've got plenty of unopened expansions. I've stopped buying the expansions now. And this came on the back of a similar thing with Arkham Horror LCG as well. And I think I've come to the realizations that LCGs just aren't for me. And I understand why Marvel Champions rate so high. I understand how accessible it is and why people get a great experience out of it. For me, it wouldn't make my top 20 at all. Yeah.
I get what you mean about more content and not getting it played, because I'll imagine that there's certainly a chunk of the Arkham Horror one I still haven't got through yet. Sure. Marvel Champions is like, I've got like Nebula, and I've got that Mad Titan Shadow up there, and I haven't even like got it played yet. So it's there's plenty enough content out there, but it sort of drips feed in. I suppose it's like, all right, this is a game I already love. Just give me a nice little bit of extra variety of it without a ton of mechanisms, and storage space. It's not too bad. I mean, one Kallax shelf compared to a lot of the giant miniature monstrosities that probably take up an entire Kallax 4x4 by themselves.
Madara, Kevin. That probably takes up a ton of space.
The Champions.
That's one box.
Yeah, I get you about the theme not being as strong with Champions. The stories, rather than it telling the story plot, you've got to make up the stories, and some scenarios are better at that than others. Like the standard basic ones don't really tell that much, but if you play the multi-part ones, like Kang, for example, is probably my favorite one of the whole lot, because that one is kind of like a 3-part scenario in itself, but that one definitely brings out a few story moments.
I think it also has to do with how well you know or identify with the character you're playing, because I think the
Yeah.
theme hits harder if you're like, oh yeah, this power totally does feel like this character, and that feels like something they would be able to do. So if you're in it for that, I think that makes more probably it makes more of an impact.
Yeah, so I don't think Marvel Champions is going to go anywhere anytime soon. I really don't. I think we're going to see this 3, and then there's going to be churn under it. But I think these 3 are going to be kind of up there in this order. So I'm going to go from the bottom to top in terms of debut because we have 4 debuts. We mentioned Lost Ruins of Arnak before. I almost think so. Lost Ruins of Arnak was weird because it came out right during COVID. And I think it was like the one game that was like, okay, play this. A lot of games came out and they're like, we're not, they're just going to stay on the shelf, but whatever. But for whatever reason, and maybe somebody could explain it to me, Lost Ruins of Arnak really kind of punched through that. And it's like, wow, this is really solid deck building and worker placement and all the different mechanisms. Go ahead, Luke.
Well, I've played it solo, but I find it more fun multiplayer. So it's surprising that it's got this high because I still like playing it with 2, 3, or 4 players to have that tension with the spaces. But the solo is still decent. But man, do I love this game! It makes me sad for the next debut you're going to talk about beating it out. But it's just like, yeah, it's. I think we've mentioned it before, where it's just like, all right, here's a bunch of mechanics, but everything is just silky smooth. There is no gears grinding in this game. Everything just works and flows with fairly quick turns because you've got 10 actions to pick from, do one of them in that your turn. So it goes around at a pretty quick pace.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. That everything absolutely works in Arnak. What it misses for me is an engaging solo experience, and I've never felt engaged with it. I found the game, as it came in the base box, way too easy as a solo game, and I'm not a great gamer. I lose far more games than I win. And I know they released the purple expansion that you can have online, etc., which added some level of difficulty, but my enjoyment had already gone. I don't really find that enjoyment in Arnak. Now, the other game, Dune, I find far superior. There are similar, they're not the same game. There are similar mechanisms in both these games, but Arnak for me is a poster child for everything that you should do in making a game work mechanically. And I understand why people love it, but for me, it leaves me just kind of without, basically. Yeah.
It's
so
fine.
I actually have the same issue with it. It's good, but do I want to play it 50 more times?
Where's the pop? Yeah, there's the pop.
There's something about it that didn't quite like there are games that kind of make my heart speed up a little bit when I'm playing, and it's like I just can't wait for what's going to happen next. And that can happen with any kind of game. I mean, I like Euros, I like war games, I like historical games, but there's something about Arnak. It's like everything works, but it's still not. It just doesn't have that shine, that shimmer to it.
No heart there for me personally in the game, and I think that's what it's missing. Yeah.
Are you talking purely solo based though, or are you talking in general?
Including multiplayer, it's fine multiplayer. It's a game that I'll always say yes. It's like Pandemic Fallout for me. I'll always say yes to it. It's not a problem. I'm happy enough to play it, but it's not more than that.
I still gotta play it. I
love it.
I will show up to UK Games Expo. Yeah. That'd be great.
I'm totally down with it being a weaker solo game though, because I will pretty much mainly just play it multiplayer. So
we have mentioned Dune Imperium at number 23 at Up Here debut, and that's I think because Michael Kelly had reviewed it and he didn't love it, and I think people kind of just went back and forth about the solo of it. A multiplayer, it's very clashy. Asymmetric factions, just like June. So it's like, area control. So like the solo bot was left people a little bit wanting. And so like, people go back and forth. So I'm actually surprised to make it this high. But I think because of the Dune craze in general, people just love being in this world, and it's a solid game enough. So it's like enough elements came together that it debuts here at number 23. I don't know if it'll stay here, but people still like Dune Imperium. Go ahead, Mark.
You got the expansion coming out soon, haven't you? The Rise of Ix expansion for it as well, which is going to breathe more life into it. And I think, again, this is a game, and I can't explain why. All the mechanisms work, but I'm invested in this game in a way that I'm not invested in Arnak in. And I just feel more of a connection with this. And I'm not a huge Dune fan. I've read the book, and yes, I enjoyed the film, but I enjoyed this before I'd read the book or watched the film. Luke hates the film, so we'll not even go there. But yeah.
Follow Luke on Facebook so you get his detailed movie reviews, usually terrible reviews because he's a sour guy.
But this game for solo, the solo that comes out of the box is great, but it's one of the ones where I would point you to one of the apps which allows you to cycle through the market, basically, because for whatever reason, in the solo game out of the box, they didn't put a market cycling mechanism in there. You can substitute it whichever way you want, roll a d6, do whatever you want to make sure you cycle that market. But I'm invested in this, and my wife has played it, and she's got no interest in she hasn't read the book, and she hasn't seen the film at that point, and she thoroughly enjoyed playing this with me as well. So I really, for whatever reason, they're similar games, not the same games. They are similar games in terms of the deck construction element of both of the games, but I just prefer Dune. It just gives me a more engaging experience when I play it. Liz, have you played Dune? Yeah.
I've not. I would be open to it. I like Dune.
Yeah,
so.
I want to play both. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to know much about Dune or even like it to play Dune Imperium,
No,
because
although I do
the
find
theme
that
is not
helps.
super. The theme is not particularly strong in it. So even if you don't like Dune, you should still at least be able to enjoy the game.
Yeah,
It helps. I like Listen, I think it helps. A couple of more debuts. So Imperium Classics at 15. And I think
I'm shocked it's that high. It's good.
it is the solo game of the year, though. Like, I mean, really.
Yeah,
in terms of like a new game, a lot of people were talking about it.
It's recent hotness, but it's also if you talk about some of these other games we've just mentioned, I'd rather play it multiplayer rather than solo. This is the game where I think you have to be like mad in order to want to play it multiplayer, because it really is only a solo game. Because I've got it. Granted, the artwork's debatable, and I wish it had a few bit streamlined rules in it, but it's downstairs in full. It's got all the variety, and it has a very fun. I love deck builders in general, and it's like, great, give me a deck builder. But yeah, I would never play this anything other than solo. It is pretty much a solo only game for everybody who has it.
That's true.
And
I've not once been like,
hotness.
let me take that to game night. Yeah, I would like to play Dune. I'm sorry, not Dune. I would like to play Imperium Classics with my friends. Like, no, I want to play by myself.
Yep.
And this game, this is one of the ones where I think, am I missing something? I've enjoyed it. But I think it massively outstays its welcome at the same time. It's too long a game. And I think that's why I don't go back and play it a lot. I understand that people absolutely adore this game. And obviously it's David Turczi and Nigel Buckle, and they've now done Voidfall. The pedigree is there. I get exactly why it's doing and why it's doing it. I just don't particularly like it that much.
You're correct about one thing there, which is it does outstay its welcome. That's my one big beef with it I mentioned in the review, which was that I just wish it, as well as being a bit more streamlined, I wish it was shorter. Now, I've tried a few methods to try and shorten it, like remove a couple of cards from the decks in advance or something, that helps, because whatever with the balancing, it's like, look, I just need to shave off 30 minutes off this game if I can. And that is something that does hurt it, because I want to get it out. And part of it is like, oh, I really would like to try that faction now. But then I have to realize, oh man, I got to set those cards up and spend a good 90 minutes with this. I don't know. It's like,
I think there aren't a lot of Civ games out there, and I think solo gamers like Civ, and there's just not. And it just scratched a Civ itch, because the factions really do line up with in some like ways. Like if you're Rome, you're conquering a lot, and if you're in these different factions, you're doing different things. You're the Vikings, you stay barbarian. And I think that people just got into that, and the fact that it's that and cards, and it's a low price point relatively speaking. I think just all that comes together. Maybe there's not like one reason this is the best game, but like it combines a lot of different things. I really, really dig Imperium, and there's more coming. There's more coming. It's a fantastic product. I don't think we need more. I'm looking forward to talking about that more down the road. And then one last debut, which is not a debut. This is actually a really old game, but it got a new printing. It got a new coat of paint, and it has rocketed up. And it is one of the big go-to quick games, Under Falling Skies. So making Liz smile down there.
It's like my most excited about like to play list. Like I have it, and I'm just like ready.
You still haven't played?
No, actually, I heard y'all mention
Mark
last
is like,
time I talked to y'all.
Don't worry about it. Don't meet your heroes over there. What do you think, Mark, about Under Falling Skies?
I think it's great. I think, again, this is another game that hits the nail on the head in terms of solo play. Its time scale is good. You've got the campaign in the box. The price point is fantastic on this, and there's no reason as a solo player that you don't go out, buy this game, fully enjoy it, and pass it on to somebody else, because you'll have got your money's worth out of it. I think it's does it do anything new and fantastic and new and revolutionary? Not necessarily. What it does is it strips everything down to a game that works, doesn't outstay its welcome, and you've got the progressive campaign as well. I think it's just a fantastic solo game that every solo gamer should have in their collection at some point. Whether they keep it or not, it's up to them. But yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Quick dice game, and we love our quick dice games. We Oniverse has a couple dice games in there, and you always get them kind of flowing in and out. But Under Falling Skies is like just so streamlined, and it just here have dice and go, but with decisions. Like it isn't just Yahtzee. Right? It really just it's like a tuning fork. Sometimes you get a game that just hit that proper tuning of like, okay, I want something super simple but not super dumb. It's right here.
Yeah.
Under Fallen Skies definitely highly recommended. Do you play these little games, Kevin? Is these like appear for you at all, or is it like all Madara or bust?
My tastes have certainly been refined to the point where I know what I like. I will say though that I just got the Imperium games in a trade thanks to Liz's review and Colin's playthrough. So I just got both of those. But no, typically. Actually, I was asking people about what's a good roll and write to get. So now I'm thinking of maybe Hadrian's Wall or something that you mentioned earlier. But no, typically the smaller ones don't. I like big campaigns. That's my thing.
That's your thing.
I'm retired now, so I have time. So if I hear Imperium Classics is long, it's like, so what?
Yeah.
So
then. So just going over, so these are categories. So like what I like to do sometimes is look at the list and go like best in show. So you're like, okay, what's the best deck builder? What's the best worker placer? What's the, because that always gets asked, right? Give me your top or whatever it is. So like, this is a really good list to be like, okay, what is the best in whatever category? And they've been fairly stable over the last couple of years, but we have had some change. Worker placement, it has been viticulture for the longest time. Viticulture is still there. Sorry, Mark.
Mark, ignore Mark.
Mark is killing sacred cows over here. But
no, I traded off my viticulture recently too, man.
It's still there. I guess I still got it up there.
Collector's box still there.
It's still there.
It's all right, Mark. Tune into my show later on this evening. I'll tell you more about it. All right?
I'd rather fall asleep from actually drinking the wine than from pretending to mix it.
But
I could say that about a lot of games.
But we have a new champion, like pure worker placement game, which is Anachrony. Anachrony from Mind Clash Games. People, we're all loving on that, and I think that game is just going to keep on going up and up. David Tercey has gone back in, redone the solo, and I think we're getting more stuff for that. So Anachrony is going to continue to be that kind of like paradigm. It's a mind bender. Like I wouldn't say that should be your first worker placement game, but in terms of like a real.
It's not that difficult to learn, though. I think it looks more difficult than it is an Anachrony. But once you've got those base rules down and you start adding those modules in, I mean, you can play the base game a few times, get to grips with it. You can add those modules in very, very easy. I don't think it's a difficult game to learn. I think you disagree, Luke.
I was going to say, but I don't know. This gets me with a lot of proper gamers also like skew weights of games far too much. Anachrony is a heavy monstrosity of a game. Yeah. I mean, that's just the base rules of it. I actually don't play with a lot of the extra scenarios because I think there's already enough in it as it is. And I do like the solo mode in it. I've played the new, Chronosis bottle? Chronosis, like that.
Yeah.
But this is kind of David Tercey's shtick or something, because like you'll get a decent solo mode, but man, do you have to bolt on a lot of extra rules in order to actually learn the extra solo mode on top. The bot is not something you can just throw in on a passing glance. It took me ages to get through that.
Mm-hmm. Fun. Wow. Yeah, I must. So some Euros I will learn double-handed. I'll play both two-handed if you like. Anachrony, I went straight into the solo on Anachrony, and I've not looked back ever since. So yeah, I suppose it's different for different people, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. So that's the paradigm worker placement game. People also put like a Feast for Odin on there, and that one has like other things going on, so it's kind of a more hybrid thing. But Feast for Odin is always a perennial top way game. Short card game. I'm sure this makes Liz happy. We have a lot of like little tiny fillers. We mentioned Orchard and all these games, but Sprawlopolis is going to take the cake on that one. Sprawlopolis and Agropolis. How many cards in that thing? Like 18 cards?
18. And with expansions, there's a few more, but 18.
and just like town building and building your adjacencies together and scoring points. It's a very, very simple game. It is definitely like it's been here for a couple of years now, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon because we do have more stuff for it. Long card game, we've talked about like the LCGs, people just loving on their LCGs. 3 of them in the top 10 is like crazy to me, but your money, people. Dice chucker, just like I'm gonna sit down and I want to chuck some dice. We got we mentioned Under Falling Skies, but like in terms of like a much more immediate experience, we had Role Player in the previous list, but I think Nemo's War, as Liz mentioned earlier, if you're gonna sit down and you're gonna chuck dice, let's put some nautical theme on it, and let's like kill big whales, and let's do that. I still got, where is it? Is it here?
I don't think you actually kill any whales in it, do you?
Look for whales.
I remember like you attack a lot of like other nations' ships or whatever, but I don't remember actually going after a whale.
Right. Dungeon crawler. I mean, Gloomhaven. Kevin combined the Jaws of the Lion and regular Gloomhaven because they do integrate. I think other lists will kind of keep those separate, but that's why it's really high. I mean, Gloomhaven is still kind of the gold standard if you want to just like dive into a dungeon and get loots and everything. People, it's divisive. Mark is not the biggest fan. There's definitely people who don't feel the way about Gloomhaven, but it is still a beloved game. Too Many Bones.
I've been waiting to talk about that one.
There we go.
I thought we were going to
go and get a cup of tea.
If you like, in terms of
to be fair, I gave it a 6. I didn't give it like a horrible score.
A 6.
It's complicated as all get out for a dice chucker.
It's not a dice chucker. It is an RPG adventure.
It's not an RPG.
Tactical battle game.
It's not an RPG.
That's a skill tree. It's the skill tree aspect of it. It's what it's for. It's like playing a video game. It's like you have to love skill trees, which I do. If you have spent a bunch of time in Skyrim being like, what skill do I want to get next with my skill point? Then Too Many Bones is a game for you. It
gets top marks for the variety and those like the skill tree leveling up, even though you kind of take a character and you go, right, that's the prime build and never build any other way. But I do love the variety with those characters, with the gear locks that they've got. I just
the fact
never
that you're
got any
saying
RPG
that makes me
out
have
of it.
so many questions about your review, and it's
I got no RPG sense out of it though, because I wanted the story as well with it, but the story is literally a deck of cards with no
Can we mute him?
coherency.
Yeah, just mute him.
We're too late. We're way too far down the road of terrible opinions on everybody.
To be fair though, to Luke, bear in mind that this is my kind of second favorite game of all time. I agree with Luke on the base game that your adventure is limited. Once you've got all, and I think you only had the base game, didn't you, Luke? Sent to you. But once you've got all the things like 40 Days in Daylore and the other stuff that goes in there, you look at things like Spice and Dice, then you start to build this greater adventure. But I take it from a base game perspective, unless it grabs you. You're not probably going to be willing to then explore more of the universe. And the more that you do get, the better the experience becomes. Absolutely.
It was base plus 2 extra gear locks or so I got to try a couple of extra characters, and that was the main bit I got from it. It's like, I want to try this character now. I want to try this one. The story I kind of glossed over. I was like, all right, fine. There's no story here. Not too fast. The rules were a bit of a pain. I mean, even fans of the game have got to admit the rules are a nightmare in this one. Like, it's a thing you conquer once you get past it. They've gotten
much better. The very first edition, the rules were a nightmare, but now it's much better.
It depends. There's a certain channel that has done a kind of guide to each of the gear locks, isn't there, Liz? I can't remember what it's called there. Fantastic channel and a fantastic person that's done a guide to the gear locks. If you watch Liz's videos, the rules will make perfect sense.
Well, to be fair, I did, because I had to look at this giant reference sheet of stuff. I was like, oh my God, who's done videos on this? This is sweet. As I've got something to
hopefully you'll be doing a much larger scale like your walk guide. So but I understand what you're saying about the story, but that's not really the point. Like, the lore is super cute, and I can see why Chip Theory gets really into that, and I like the creativity on that. But it's really in those different characters, in the skill builds, in the fact that you have to build differently for each tyrant or for who you're playing with. Like, there is no ideal build, because what it is who is on my team, who am I going up against, and how much time do I have? And as you play the game more often, you're going to build differently, knowing, okay, so I saw these kind of enemies go into those chip stacks, so I know I need to do something about that.
It is the biggest, for me, difference.
It is hard as nails with those.
It's the biggest difference between Too Many Bones and Gloomhaven for me. So Gloomhaven, you build your character.
Yeah.
and you build an awesome character, and you're gonna raffle stomp through a lot of different scenarios. Too many bones, you have to build towards the scenario. Like you can't build your poison guy and the enemy's immune to poison. Like, I mean, there's this very much hard counters that you have to kind of deal with in Too Many Bones, which is excellent.
That to me made it feel too linear though, because I want to say, right, I've got this medic character. Oh, cool, I can make a poison character. This is my favorite way to play it. But if it's basically saying, right, who am I fighting against? Oh, that person. Nah, I've got to play it like this, otherwise I'll lose. And it's hard as nails, this game.
But you literally are contradicting. You said I have to build them the same way every time last time. So like, which is it? Are you just making stuff up to sound too cool for this game? I'm smelling some Kakadabaka right here. Like,
well, yeah, but I want to. I mean, I like the variety. I find I don't get to build as much of the variety as but then to be honest, the RPG sense of it. I mean, if you tell me it's an RPG, I wanted the story, but it wasn't there. But like I said, I don't do bad. True. The biggest thing that usually I've debated with others is when people talk about the tactical part of it, the map. I don't get the map because people say that's a really tactical movement thing. Every time I've played it, it felt more like a rugby scrum. Like it was like, or like an NFL starting lineup or something. It's like, so because I thought monsters were going to move all over the map and you were going to do like flanks and stuff. But whenever I played it, it's like, right, you've got your you've got a couple of melee guys at the front. There's your 4 melee enemies. Go. And then like the NFL, everybody clashes until somebody's left standing. I don't know. Did I play it wrong? I don't know, because it never felt like a skirmish.
Okay, so you're partially right, but if you ignore the tactics, if you just say, well, I got a range character, I'm just gonna sit here and shoot, you're gonna lose. If your melee character just charges straight ahead to the closest enemy, you're gonna lose. So I think, yes, it's not a 100 by 100 grid map where you can go all over the place, and yes, flanking doesn't really happen. I get that, but especially with the later characters, more and more movement counts. And I guess in this last Kickstarter, they started adding, lava terrain and stuff like that, which really changed it. Here's what I'll say. To me, if someone wants to say what's wrong with Too Many Bones, I mean, the first thing that I think hits people is the cost. But then here's what I did is I got Marvel Champions, the base game. I played it. I'm like, okay, but I don't want to spend another $1,000 on this over the next 5 to 10 years. I'd rather buy more Too Many Bones. And so I throw away Marvel Champions. The last Kickstarter, I didn't even look at it. It said, okay, $220 to get the newest stuff. Sure, sign me up. And then I moved on, and I haven't looked at the page since they charged me yesterday. Because it's just, I don't care. I know it's going to be great. I don't care what it is. It's going to be fantastic. And like kind of like Madar in a way, the characters are so different. Again, so many games, the characters are okay. They're different. They got a different name or the picture's different, but they're not different. These are different. And there's some I love. There's some I don't want to play with, I admit. There's some that you put this character with this character, and that's a huge difference in how you play. I might play Tantrum one way, but if I don't have a healer, or if I'm with someone who's not ranged, I got to play them really different. And so, and again, and the Tyrant makes a big difference. But I love the little map where, yes, you're not moving around a lot, and they recognize that as a knock on it. And they changed it in the latest Kickstarter where they're going to make you move more. They're making dexterity be a lot higher thing you need.
That would be cool.
But I would move.
Okay.
You got to move some.
Those are best in show, right? I mean, Too Many Bones, we can go all day.
Yeah.
Too Many Bones and Gloomhaven are in terms of like dungeon stuff and that character creation along the way. Mage Knight kind of goes along with that, but it's doing something different. But there's a lot of different flavors in terms of the dungeon stuff. Just to kind of round out the list, Euro's Gaia project is like, in terms of a classic Euro, just like, okay, I want to crunch numbers, and with an excellent bot, so I didn't include solo bots like Morten Monrad Pedersen is very well represented in terms of the Automa bots all up and down the list. So Gaia project is probably his best solo bot. Feast for Odin, Noose for Jord. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Newsfjord, something
along those lines. A very good selection of euros there. Deck builder, making Liz happy. Imperium Classics, very, very strong showing, but does not conquer the king, the reign. Let's not go gender on this one. The reigner, which is Aeon's End. So still making Liz happy, right? Right, Liz?
Oh yeah. I like that game a lot. I was actually, we didn't mention it earlier, but even though it's much lower down, I was also happy to see things like Apex Theropod, since that's got its reprint. Like that's a fabulous little deck builder. Just excellent. Anything where I could be a dinosaur is a winner for me.
I gotta get that one to the table. That one's definitely cool.
And of course, baseball highlights, another fine deck builder.
I think we said that we weren't going to mention it. Liz saved it for the very end. How could you, Liz?
I'm thinking I'm going to take dinosaurs over baseball. I'll say that.
Baseball robots. I just love it.
Oh, but that.
Sorry, Liz. We agree on so much, but that isn't one of them.
With the big euros, though, it was pretty high. Where was it? Because we mentioned like Uri Rosenberg stuff. 39, not too bad, but I like Feast of Odin fine. I can understand, probably play it solo more than multiplayer and that, but I would have liked Fields of Isle to have got to the top 25 or something, because that as a solo sandbox game is just my kind of farming euro. It's like, just give me 100 options and let me choose how I want to build this, without something sort of pigeonholing me into like one thing, because it doesn't throw like a special scenario to say, right, we're doing this scenario, therefore you better do this aspect. It's like, nope. Even Pursuit of Happiness is kind of a similar thing. It's like, apart from those little solo objectives you've got, for the most part, it's cool. All right, where do I want to do this time? And that gets me into a lot more games, is a sandbox type feeling.
So that is a ton of solo for your tables, for your wallets, for your faces, for Christmas that is coming up. And I went the entire time, all 3 episodes, without saying the word pandemic once. So I said to myself, I mention it every year and I took it out, but whatever. It's
irrelevant.
If you're getting half of these solo games for Christmas, you're having a very generous Christmas.
There's some really expensive things on here. But hopefully we have given you a very large cross-section of things to enjoy. We've had a lot of laughs here. We go at each other, but there's nothing but love on this channel. Nothing but, well, maybe a little bit besides that.
Mark, you said it yourself. You spend more time with me than your wife. All right, so
this is true. Absolutely,
So let's just round this out. Luke, Hector, tell people about your channel.
The Broken Meeple reviews, previous top 10s. Tell it how it is, but I always say at the end it's only a game, because no matter, I love a game, I'll tell about it. If I hate a game, I'll hate about it. But at the end of the day, everyone's got different tastes, and I love that aspect of gaming. It's like, it's great to get different contrasting views. Watched my top 10 recently with Chairman of the Board, prime example. Thematic Euro versus Stefan Feldlover. It's that kind of thing. But if you want to basically just get a blunt perspective, then by all means check it out.
That's the Broken Meeple. Mark Dainty with Not Board Gaming. Tell about your channel.
So Not Board Gaming is purely solo and solo based. Reviews, previews, interviews, etc. Yes, when my reviews are right, I will be. I can be as blunt, if not quite as blunt as Luke, but I can be blunt in some of the games that don't really scratch an itch for me. I tend to release a video about once every 10, 14 days, something like that. So not necessarily high output, but really all things solo gaming. I love solo gaming.
Is it a British thing for us to be blunt? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm nice, and I'm going to call that a British thing. I'm not nearly as blunt with my receptions. Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire. Mark did mention gracefully that you have a lot of stuff on Beyond Solitaire, doing some really good tutorials for Too Many Bones, and there's more coming up. Also, the podcast.
Yes, so I'm Beyond Solitaire all over the place. Good brand consistency, I guess. But yes, come to my YouTube channel for some reviews, some playthroughs, some tutorials, and actually I put my podcast over there as well. I just did an interview series with all the finalists for the Zenobia Award, which is, a war game or a historical game award. So I'm doing all kinds of just wild stuff over on my channel. Come over and see me. Happy to talk games.
Kevin Erskine has no channel. You will not hear from this man, his voice or his face for an entire year. Hopefully he has not fired me, and then we'll be back for year 7 for top 200 by then.
You did invite me once during the year when Liz canceled on you, so you're like desperate for someone, so you asked me to join you on a video.
I wanted you, which is the timing, because you were out. It was a timing
Sure.
thing. So it's like 7 o'clock. I could get Liz. They were like, "Oh, I got to delay to 10." Liz like, "I'm sleeping." Kevin's still awake.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
you came in
Yeah.
for a chip theory.
Yeah.
Which knows no secret about how much you love chip theory. But Kevin Erskine,
Absolutely.
people can absolutely interact with you on the One Player Guild on BGG. That is correct.
Yes, I'm on there all the time. So I may still only be playing one game right now, but I still interact with a lot of people on there.
Hopefully,
I'll
you get
happily
Imperium
tell
to the
you when
table
you're
sooner
wrong.
rather than later. Imperium is really good. All right, so that was top 200 People's Choice Solo Games commentary. We have fun with this every single year. Hopefully, you had fun as well. Happy Thanksgiving in the Americas. Happy holiday season. Hopefully, get those games in early. Get those purchases early for Christmas because of the shipping nightmares. You got to get them now so that they get there in time under your tree for Christmas. Or just enjoy. No spending whatsoever. Just enjoy some beautiful games with beautiful, family and friends. Or as we are and talking about solo by yourself, just get some fun stuff to the table. Any way you want to enjoy this hobby, we are all for it. If you could change your mind, you could change the world, people. So until next time, later, everybody.